So we had actually started with the with understanding the 1-7 axis of Rahu Ketu. That means Rahu in the first house and Ketu in the seventh house, and it was not even completed. Okay, and let's begin as we usually do with the Shanti mantra. Om Sahana Bhavatu Sahano Bhunakatu Sah Viryankarvavahai Tejasvinadadhitamastu Ma Vidvishavahai. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Okay. There is somebody who has entered with the iPhone name. It's better if if you could kindly enter with your name. It's not a requirement, but it actually helps me to identify, who is who. Okay. So just hold on.
Hello. I'm not able to hear. Is anyone speaking?
Okay. All right. So we had, in the last class, we dealt with the psychology of Rahu in the first, but we did not have a look at Ketu in the seventh. Okay, that is very, very important. Okay. So I think I gave out a predictive rule for for Ketu in the seventh house, if Thanu remembers it. If Ketu is in the seventh house of any horoscope, you can actually predict that the native will not feel like being married till till he or she has a son. Specifically, this is, I'm being very specific, not a child. Okay, not a girl child, but a male child. Okay, you can test this in any chart that you see with Ketu in the seventh house. Okay, now we come to the relationship part of this 1-7 Rahu Ketu axis. Okay, so because Ketu is ambivalent in the seventh house, it will create a vacuum in the relationships of the native. All right, and the problem will come when as the native will find it difficult to enter into or to maintain or to fulfill contracts. Okay, so relationships are nothing but contracts. Yes, and as a result, the native, he or she, will be typically uninterested in marriage, okay, partnerships, bilateral agreements, or any kind of social expectations honoring equality, honoring equity, fairness, justice, or any kind of sharing. Okay, now the problem is although the native minimizes his obligations to his partner, he will expect devotion and unconditional love. Why? Because he thinks that he is more deserving. So this is a funny thing. Okay, so the native will not want to want to maintain or want to come into a relationship, but if he or she comes into a relationship, he will actually expect devotion and unconditional love from the partner. Okay, so these are the people who are takers in a relationship. Okay, so a relationship, a person is either a giver or a taker. Okay, so can anyone tell me how to find out whether the person will be a giver or taker? Any idea? Do you know how to see whether you will be a giver or a taker in your relationship? Just write out. Are you a giver, or are you a sort of taker in the relationship? Anyone who knows? Okay, going. This is again a predictive part. You will be a giver if you're Tithi Lord. Okay, it is something called Tithi Lord. You can find the Tithi Lord in any astrological software. Go to the Panchanga and see who the Tithi Lord is. So if you're a Tithi Lord, if your Tithi Lord is a malefic planet, okay, Saturn, Sun, Mars, Rahu, or Ketu, then you'll be a giver in your relationships. Okay, if your Tithi Lord is a benefic planet, Venus, Mercury, Moon, or Jupiter, then you will be a taker in your relationship. Just look at that. All right. Now, this is an additional condition that you can use to judge the relationship, the attitude of a person towards a relationship. K2 in the seventh house, regardless of the Tithi Lord being a benefic or a malefic, the person will always be a taker. Okay, he or she will always take partners for granted. Here, according to them, the needs of their partners are unimportant, and he or she will reject them if their demands become too distracting. Okay, if the demands of the partners become too distracting, then he or she will reject the partners. Okay, and Ketu in the seventh house straight away predict that the person will break promises. Okay, all right. So they will break promises, they will violate contracts, and they can also cancel negotiations if they are underway. Okay, so what do you do if you have a client who has K2 in the seventh house? Okay, for example, a client comes to you and inquires about your services, any service that you do, and then you tell him or her about the service, and then you see that the client has K2 in the seventh house. Then never ever tell the client that, I want you to get back to me with this. This is my proposal. I want you to get back to me with your proposal. The client is never going to get back. Okay, make him or her sign the contract there and then if you're actually trying to do business with people having K2 in the seventh house. The first rule, of course, is never to do business with people having K2 in the seventh house. The second rule, even if you're forced to do business with such people, always force them to negotiate contracts, even though it may sound very, yucky, it may sound very dominating or controlling. But this is something that you have to do for the protection of your interests. Okay. So how many of you have come across people having K2 in the seventh house? You will be able to relate. Okay. Now, the question is the marriage for these people, if will these people always fail in their relationships? Will these people always blow up their marriages? No, of course not. Okay. So such a person can, such a person can make a relationship work. Okay. If that, if he or she is subservient to, if the partner is subservient to the native's need for primacy. Okay, not privacy, primacy. Primacy means I am the best. Okay, I am the best. Or the other way to make suppose a client comes to you, one has K2 in the seventh house, and then they come and tell you that, my relationship is not working. Then the remedy is to, advise the couple to spend sufficient time apart. Okay, so that, the native is freed from any demands that the partner makes from him, of him, that is. Okay, so these are some very simple, very basic, but yet very effective remedies. Okay, and if you still want to make it work with a partner who has K2 in the seventh house, just let me know. We can still do it using tantra. Okay, but anyways, so as I was saying, such a native will always seek partners reflecting, his or her own ambivalence about relationships. Okay, they will seek partners they will seek a partner who doesn't care about fidelity or a stable marriage. Okay, for example, if the partner is having a relationship outside the marriage, or if if the partner of such a native is looking outside the relationship, as long as the partner is taking care of their needs, they don't care. You can go and have sex with anyone. I don't care unless and as long as my needs are being fulfilled within the marriage. Okay. So what is Ketu? Ketu is the headless one. Okay, without ego. All right. So you know the native needs no the partner should have a condition of requiring no gratification or self validation. Okay, even if if you for especially in India, if your son or daughter has Ketu in the seventh house, you have to get a partner who is on a lower economic status as compared to the native. Okay, if it is on a higher economic status, then it is a disaster. Okay, it is a disaster. So uh because Ketu also implies loss and surrender, the partner may be abandoned, okay, physically, emotionally, or psychologically. All right, and as a result, partners may feel permanently unwell, and they may end up seeking help through friends, doctors, or therapists. Okay, so I always tell this, okay, to my clients, that a relationship can kill you faster than cigarettes. Okay, can the number one cause for cancer is bad relationship. Okay, that is the number one cause for cancer. People don't highlight this cause. Okay, the number one cause for cancer is bad relationship, either with yourself, if you have a bad relationship with yourself, or if you're suffering from a very traumatic relationship, you can actually end up getting cancer. Okay, so the aim, basically, this combination of Ketu in the seventh house, okay, it means you need to take a spiritual recourse. Okay, you need to cultivate a relationship with the divine to to deal with this combination. Okay, and since Ketu in the seventh, that's your karma. Okay, that's your karma. You need to have a very spiritual outlook towards your relationship with the partner. Okay, and you need to be in a constant relationship with the divine. All right, that is the reason C.S. Patel, I don't know how many of you have heard about Chandulal Patel. He was considered to be one of the greatest astrologers of India, even greater than Shri K. N. Rauji. So C.S. Patel often suggested that these people should constantly be engaged in japa. Japa means religious chanting. All right, K20 seventh house natives, if they constantly try to cultivate a relationship with the divine, they can actually tide over the problems that come with the relationship. Okay, personally, I have not seen this remedy work, but this is one remedy that C.S. Patel used to suggest to his clients or to his students. Okay, now Ketu in the seventh, it'll suggest a subservient partner. Okay, and the native will be attracted to hierarchical relationships. For example, the relationship between a guru and his students, the relationship between a pop star and his groupies, maybe a teacher and his students, maybe a boss and his employees. Okay, and why does this happen? Because such relationships are non-contractual. Okay, non-contractual, especially regarding sexual interaction. Okay, and such relationships enable the native to exercise his or her authority when convenient. Okay, these natives can discard a used up partner, and they can easily move on to the next without feeling any guilt or remorse. Okay, one-to-one relationships may be typical, maybe it is necessary for maintaining social order, but in the minds of such natives, there is no harm in one with many relationship, because in their minds there are no contractual boundaries anyway. Okay, so always know that contractual boundaries are only in the mind, not on paper. Of course, a paper can be a legal binding, but the real binding lies here. And if you think that you have no contractual bindings with anyone, then it can be really really troublesome for the partner. Okay, so this is a very devil may care attitude. Okay, and if this is not checked, if proper remedies are not done, then the native may acquire a reputation for physical, emotional, or psychological cruelty in relationships. Okay, because a relationship is all about rules. Okay, relationship is a game which is played with a set of rules. But here, for these natives, a relationship becomes a game without rules. Okay, and as a result, these natives make them up as they go. All right. So the only recourse for the partner is either to accept this nature or to withdraw. Okay, because either way, the native is winning. Even if the partner accepts it, then the native has his way, has her way. If the native withdraws, then also the native has her way, has his or her way. Okay, so it is a condition where partners can be dehumanized, and then you know they can be later discarded without remorse. Okay, so this is a very psychological aspect of one's personality if one has Ketu in the seventh house. Okay, because this Ketu in the seventh house, it undermines togetherness. Okay, and there will be often distance between partners. Okay, for example, cultural, emotional, financial, physical, psychological, or even sexual. Okay, to such an extent that the partner is perceived as inaccessible. Okay, if someone is partnering such a native, they all of a sudden they will give off this vibe of inaccessibility, that you cannot access me sexually, you cannot access me psychologically. All right, so ultimately, either the native becomes dissatisfied or the partner becomes dissatisfied, and the native moves on. Okay, either to be alone or to the next relationship where he or she can exhibit a lot of cruelty. Okay, now the critical factor in this combination is the sexual part. Okay, because if Rahu is in the first house, then it will give powerful sexual desires. Okay, but with this with this ambivalent Ketu in the seventh, those sexual desires will be merely absorbed without being reciprocated. All right, so no matter how much such a native attempts to arouse the partner to be as actively engaged or obsessed with sex as he or she is, okay, the native will remain relatively aloof. Okay, so what this does, it eventually provokes his dissatisfaction and encourages the native to look for someone else whose passion matches his. Okay, so in the seventh house, this Ketu will imply lack of attachment to sexual partners. Okay, and this can manifest either as indiscriminate infidelity or celibacy. Okay, now celibacy is not brahmacharya. Okay, people think that celibacy is brahmacharya. Celibacy is not brahmacharya. Brahmacharya is something very, very different, very, very exquisite. It's a very Indian process of moving your sexual energy up your body. Okay, it can be done. That process can be done solo, or it can be done with a partner as well. But nowhere in Indian texts it is written that brahmacharya equals celibacy. Okay, nowhere it is written that brahmacharya equals no sex. It is an idea that was propagated by Vivekananda. All right, and then people have taken that idea to be reality. It is nowhere close to reality. All right, celibacy is where you are a frustrated human being without sex. Okay, but brahmacharya is not celibacy. All right, so with infidelity, infidelity, the partner does not care who he or she has sex with. And with celibacy, the native the partner the native does not care whether he or she has sex at all. Okay, so whether the problem will come from infidelity or whether the problem will come from celibacy, it will depend on the seventh house and influences on the seventh lord. Okay, for example, Venus influencing the seventh house or the seventh lord, it will favor indulgent pleasure. Okay, while Saturn influencing the seventh house or the seventh lord will settle for absence of sexuality or absence of you know sexual pleasures. Okay, so what I'm trying to say is, for these people, the sexual boundaries are very fuzzy. Okay, and the partner's expectations of fidelity are largely ignored. Okay, but then other planets can have an influence. For example, a strong Jupiter may offer moral propriety, or a strong Saturn may show some kind of sexual restraint. So K2 has no discrimination. K2 suffers from a lack of discrimination. And this lack of discrimination has no boundaries. Okay. So in the seventh house, this K2 can suggest experimental, kinky, or non traditional sex, for example, BDSM. Yes. So inhibitions, rules, and normal expectations go out of the window, and the bedroom can actually become an animalistic. arena. Okay, the bedroom can become an animalistic arena. All right. Okay, the question is around brahmacharya. Sometimes pandits say one should keep brahmacharya while doing puja. As per you, it's it is not the one which today's world follow. No, not at all. Okay, brahmacharya was never the one that today's world follows. Brahmacharya means movement of sexual energy throughout your body, and that sexual energy can be used to heal any part, okay, including cancer. All right. So today's brahmacharya is just celibacy. That is not brahmacharya. Okay, that is absolutely sexual deprivation. All right. Okay. Now, as I said, the bedroom can become an animalistic arena where everything is legal when it comes to sexuality. Okay. And although such things may temporarily satisfy the native's passions, it can also leave the partner feeling very detached. Okay. Lacking the personal contract that cements most relationships. Yes, most relationships have to be cemented by a personal contract. Okay. Okay, this is Prashant. Yeah. So brahmacharya can also be maintained. Okay, Prashant. So brahmacharya can also be maintained by couples. Okay. Like, you can engage, you can have great sex, but you can still maintain brahmacharya by collecting your orgasms. All right. This is something that people don't know. And and when I tell this to people, they say, "What? Are you joking?" No, I'm not, basically. Okay. So brahmacharya can also be a collection of great orgasms. But there's a way to do it. There's a very exquisite way to do it. And Purnima and Amavasya become very, very special for this ritual. Okay. Anyways, uh so as I said, for cementing a relationship, you need to have a personal contract with the partner. Okay. So because Ketu in the seventh house can show a loss of personal contract contact, the relationship is almost always weak. Okay. And with the passage of time, things can sputter to a halt, resulting in disappointment, yes, disillusionment, distrust, and finally disengagement. Okay. How to do it, lol, for the healing part? I'll teach you, Shannon. That is a part of your course. Okay, I'll teach you in Tantra. Yeah. So if the native is evolved enough to recognize the partner's spirituality, the relationship can be transformed. Okay. And this is not a remedy, but this is a this is the understanding from Ketu in the seventh house. Okay. So rather than focusing on raw sexuality, if grace is there, the native may find spiritual expression through tantric practices, for which the partner may be an appropriate channel. This is what I was telling. Okay. The partner can become a appropriate channel for practicing brahmacharya. Okay, it's very much a part of tantra, but again, as I said, it's not nothing related to what brahmacharya is, or how brahmacharya can be practiced. Okay. Now you go to celebrity horoscopes on Astro Sage, and you can look at a few famous charts. Okay. For example, Arthur Balfour. Okay, he was the prime minister of Britain who had this combination. Okay. Then Tommy Lee Jones, who was the American actor, he had this combination. Okay. Benito Mussolini, he had this combination. Okay. Guru Nanak had this combination. All right. So you can go and Pope John Paul II, who was the second longest serving pope in modern history. Okay. He is credited with ending communism in Poland. So he had this combination. Okay. So just let's take a break for a couple of minutes, and I'll illustrate this in a few charts. Okay. Let's take a break. Okay. So let's look at a few example charts of people having this combination. Okay. Let me share my screen. All right. So I hope you can see this. So this is Tom Brady. Okay. So I hope this is visible to everyone. Yes. Okay. So Tom Brady, he was born on the 3rd of August, 1977, and he is an American football quarterback for the New England Patriots of NFL. Okay. Shannon would be knowing it. All right. So he is the only player to have won 6 Super Bowls, as well as having won them all playing for one team. And he is considered by most football enthusiasts to be one of the greatest quarterbacks of all time. Okay. And I'm just giving you a history of his events, of his life events, basically. Okay. So, Brady attended football camp as a child, and in high school, he played basketball, baseball, and football. Okay. At the age of around 18, he was drafted as the catcher for the Montreal Expos, but chose instead to attend the University of Michigan and play college football from 1995 to 1999. Okay. He majored in organizational studies, and for 2 summers, he interned at the financial firm Merrill Lynch. Okay. And in his first 2 years at Michigan, he struggled as a backup quarterback to get playing time, at one point hiring a sports psychologist to help deal with frustration and anxiety. But then in the latter 2 years of college, he became lead quarterback and earned the name of comeback kid for his ability to wrest victory from opposing teams despite trailing mid game in points. All right. And after college, he almost missed getting drafted. And when selected as the 199th pick by the New England Patriots, he cried with relief that he wouldn't have to become an insurance salesman. Okay. And since Brady became their starting quarterback in 2001, the Patriots have won 14 divisional titles. And in addition, he led his team in 8 Super Bowl games and won 5 of them. The 51st Super Bowl being the most dramatic, in which the Patriots overcame a 25-point deficit. Okay, which was, by the way, the largest comeback in Super Bowl history. But then, despite his winning ways, again, Shannon would know Brady is a sore loser. Okay. And in the 3 Super Bowls that he has lost, he fled the field to avoid shaking hands with the winning quarterback. Okay. So look at the chart. The moon occupies the same sign as Ketu, but it lies outside the degree of the nodal axis. Okay, so this is a potential Kala Sarpa, not a perfect Kala Sarpa, but it's a potential Kala Sarpa. But nonetheless, this chart has been selected because of this Rahu and Ketu in the first house. Okay, and this is an Anuloma type with most planets moving towards Rahu. All right, so this is why it is important. All right, it's a difficult Kala Sarpa. Okay, the Viloma is the easier one, the Anuloma is the difficult one. Okay. So Rahu lies within a degree of the Lagna and therefore occupies the ascendant. Okay. In most of the Amshas. That means in most of the divisional charts. And both Rahu and the Lagna are in Chitra Nakshatra. So the qualities of this Chitra Nakshatra will be very evident. And what are the qualities? Privacy, seriousness, craftsmanship, administrative and design skills. Okay. And yeah, I'm coming to that, Shannon. Okay. And Chitra Nakshatra natives, they have a presence that sometimes seems larger than life. Okay. And Brady, he was born into Saturn Dasha, Mars Antardasha, and Saturn participates in one of the very few yogas in this chart. You see Viprita Yoga, where the 6th Lord Saturn is combining with the 12th Lord Sun. Okay. So Saturn is sufficiently removed from the Sun to avoid serious combustion. Okay. And the two Trixthana lords are alone in the 11th with no association or aspect from any other planet. Okay. So generally what happens is the trick lords, the house of the trika houses, 3 6 3 6 and 11, they can sometimes cause a lot of affliction on wherever with whomever they associate. Okay, so here, because there is no association or aspect from any other planet, the affliction is fairly less. Okay, so this combination of the 6th lord and the 12th lord in the 11th house, it reflects his ability to snatch victory from the jaws of defeat. you know People think that the 11th house is bad, sorry, it's good, but it is actually the highest evil. Okay, Trishadhaya. Yes. And this Viparita is the signature yoga in the horoscope, which is so dramatically empowered by the Kala Sarpa. So, what did we study in the previous classes? Kala Sarpa amplifies the bad yogas and it reduces the quality of the good yogas. Okay, so Viparita is a bad yoga. Okay, because it will first make you go through a lot of pain, and only then it will start giving you results. Okay, so because it's a bad yoga, so it is empowered by the Kala Sarpa. Okay, and when he played college football for Michigan State, Brady earned the nickname the comeback kid. Why? Because he had this uncanny ability to recover from trailing points. Okay. And again, Shannon would know that in the 2009-10 season of NFL, he was voted the comeback player of the year. Okay. So this look at this Dasha Bhukti Lord Mars. It is unconnected to any other planet. Okay. But it is the nakshatra dispositor of both Rahu and the Lagna. Yes, so it epitomizes the role of athlete and warrior. Okay, and who is Rahu's Rashi dispositor? It is Mercury, who is also the Lagnesh. Okay, and Mercury is also Ketu's nakshatra dispositor. Okay, so Mercury has a really influential role to play in the chart. Okay, and it is the sign lord of two Raj yogas involving Jupiter and Venus, and the nakshatra lord of the Viprit yoga between Sun and Saturn. Okay, so three planets, Sun, Saturn, and Ketu, they occupy a Mercury nakshatra. Okay, so this means that in most of the dasha bhuktis, that means in most of the antar dashas, the push will be to animate this Mercury, which is also the Lagnesh. Okay, and this Mercury, it becomes a very important planet for name and fame as well. Okay, now Ketu's Rashi dispositor is Jupiter, okay, which forms Kesari Yoga with the moon. Okay, and because it is also the dual Kendra Lord, it participates in two Raj Yogas with the trinal Lord Venus in the 10th house. Okay, so this moon with Ketu and this Saturn aspecting Rahu, it makes Kala Sarpa like a dosha. Okay, and although it is not evident in his professional career, you can get hints. All right, so Shannon said that he underwent a divorce. That is true, and that is because of this Kala Sarpa. Okay, and then again during university days, Brady used a sports psychologist to help deal with frustration and anxiety. Okay, and again, as I said, he is a very sore loser, so he still cannot handle defeat despite having a psychologist to work with him. Okay. Now, Ketu Dasha, people fear Ketu Dasha very much, but it actually made him a household name in the National Football League. Okay. And he was drafted by the New England Patriots in Ketu Dasha, Ketu Bhukti. Okay. And he led his team to 3 Super Bowl victories in the Antardasha period of Moon, Jupiter, and Saturn. So Ketu Dasha gave him a lot. Okay. And this Venus Dasha, it has extended his run of professional success. Okay. And see, Venus, it occupies the nakshatra of Rahu. Okay, so because it occupies the nakshatra of Rahu, it will give Rahu's results during the periods. Okay, and in Venus, he was voted most valuable player for the 2007 season. Okay, and the Associated Press voted him the best male athlete of the year. Okay, and I've previously mentioned that for the 2009 NFL season, he was voted the comeback player of the year. Comeback player of the year. Okay, now, in the Venus Rahu period, there was the Deflate Gate scandal in 2015, okay, which involved an underinflated football. Okay, but keeping that aside, in the same Bhukti or in the same Dasha, he won 2 Super Bowls. Okay, first on the 49th Super Bowl on February 2015, and then the 51st Super Bowl on February 2017. Okay, so this win of the 51st Super Bowl, it established a Super Bowl record for the largest comeback in history. So you see what Kala Sarpa does. Although it can be classified as a dosha in Tom Brady's chart, but it still helped him to be a world beater despite the flaws. Okay, so Benito Mussolini, how is it spelled here? I don't know. Yeah, so he was a Italian politician and leader of the National Fascist Party. And as a youth, he attended this boarding school run by monks and qualified as an elementary school teacher. Okay, and In the university, he was influenced by the ideas of, of communists like Marx and Machiavelli. Yes, he edited a socialist newspaper advocating social violence, and he also wrote a novel, The Cardinal's Mistress, which earned him the Vatican's enmity. Yes, and in World War One, he was wounded by a mortar that left 40 pieces of shrapnel in his body. And convinced that his socialism was toothless, he embraced fascism's notion of rulership by an elite warrior class. Okay, and this is from history. Yes, he led a march of around 30,000 black shirt supporters on Rome to demand the government's resignation. He became the youngest prime minister in Italian history. He survived 3 assassination attempts, and after that he ran the country like a dictator. Yes. So what he did was he fostered a cult of personality in which he was extolled as a super leader, sometimes managing as many as 7 government departments as the prime minister. Yes. And he was regarded as a role model of Italian manhood and sexual virility. He seduced many women petitioners in his office without even removing his pants and shoes. Okay. And he was very superstitious as well. He feared hunchbacks, cripples, and open umbrellas. Okay. And he was, people say that he was an anti-Semite, but I would say that he was a racist. He was a racist, okay, because he waged genocidal wars in Libya and Ethiopia. And in the Second World War, military defeats by the Allies in North Africa and Italy spelled his end. Okay, he was deposed and imprisoned by his own government, rescued by a German commando operation. But then he was later caught and executed by the partisans. Okay, so his body was hung upside down in public to be stoned and abused. And just before his capture and execution, he gave an interview in which he had declared that 7 years ago I was an interesting person. Now I am little more than a corpse. My star has fallen. Okay, so look at this chart of Mussolini. Yes, all the planets, they lie within the 150-degree zone of the nodes, but then a couple of signs are empty. Okay, so he has a potential Kala Sarpa configuration. All right, so it is not the perfect Kala Sarpa combination, but then it's a very powerful combination. Okay, and it is an Anuloma type with all the planets moving towards Rahu. So it's a difficult Kala Sarpa. Okay, so Rahu is in its own nakshatra of Swati, so it is like having an exalted planet in the Lagna. Okay, and in Mussolini's case, this gave strength and endurance on the physical side, while on the psychological side, it gave him a magnetic personality, but also having a massive ego. Okay, but then you see Rahu receiving Jupiter's aspect, so it reduces the negativity. Okay, and more so because this Jupiter is the Sukshma Lagna Lord. Okay, and it is strong by the virtue of being in its own nakshatra. Okay, so in just a minute. Yeah. Now Mussolini was born in Moon Mahadasha Saturn Antardasha, and look at Saturn and Moon. They are both occupying the 8th house, where the Moon is exalted. Okay, but it is hemmed between Mars and Saturn. That means it is in a Papkartari Yoga. Okay, so Moon is in a doubly exaggerated condition. Okay, and because it is exaggerated, it is in a Papkartari, so it is highly susceptible to Kalasarpa's power of amplification. Okay, so because Moon is the 10th Lord, this 10th Lord coming to the 8th is a major indicator of his fall from grace. Okay, and all these 3 planets in the 8th house, Moon, Mars, and Saturn, they fall in Rohini Nakshatra. Okay, which is the nakshatra of the Moon. So at least for at least a third of all the Antardashas, the effects of their respective periods, highlight the major themes of the nakshatra of Rohini. And what are the themes of Rohini? Narcissism, lust, ethnocentrism, and risk taking. Okay, so Rahu's sign dispositor is Venus. It forms a Viparit yoga with Jupiter. With what is Jupiter? Jupiter lords the 8th and the 6th house. Okay, And between the lordship of Venus and the aspect of Jupiter on Rahu, the ability to overcome opposition is embodied in the Kala Sarpa pattern. Okay, but then the relative instability of Venus being Sandhi, it makes it somewhat tenuous. Okay, now K2 is in Aries. Okay, so K2 does well in fire signs. Okay, and therefore we can say that K2 is strongly placed here. Okay, and the sign dispositor is Mars, which despite occupying the eighth house, it is a it forms a Chandra Mangala yoga. Okay, so it's a very auspicious yoga, and then it also produces a Raj yoga and the Thana yoga with Saturn. Okay, now Mercury's destiny was established during his Rahu Dasha from age 12 to 30, and in Rahu Mercury period, he was arrested for organizing strikes. In Rahu Venus, he began editing socialist newspapers, and in Rahu Moon, he was jailed for participating in a riot. Okay, and during Rahu Mars, he also became an editor of a socialist newspaper. I've forgotten the name. Okay, but anyways, look at Jupiter. It aspects Rahu, and because it aspects Rahu, so the influence is amplified by the Kala Sarpa. Okay, and it was in this era from 1922 onwards that a cult of personality was built up around Mussolini. Okay, and despite his fascist tendencies, he was for some time very highly regarded and acknowledged as being the best educated and most sophisticated of dictators. Okay, now in Jupiter Dasha, Mussolini saw military service in the First World War. He worked as a journalist and author, and he became a fascist leader. And during Jupiter Saturn, he was wounded in combat and later employed as a secret agent for the M15, agency of the British. Okay. In Jupiter Mercury, he formed a local fascist group. Again, in Jupiter Venus, he was elected to the Chamber of Deputies, and in October 1922, he became the youngest prime minister of Italy. Okay, and remarkably, his rise to leadership of Italy occurred under a transiting Kalasarpa configuration. Okay, you can see how Kalasarpa influenced his entire life. Yes, and in Jupiter Moon, he began creating a police state. Okay, and he survived the 3 assassination attempts. Those are very famous survivals he had, and that happened during the Jupiter Mars period. Okay, now Saturn Dasha saw his further rise and ultimate fall. Okay, look what Saturn does. It associates with the 10th Lord Moon and it aspects the 10th house from the 8th. Okay, so in Saturn Dasha, Saturn Antardasha, Italy waged genocidal wars in Libya. And in Saturn Ketu Dasha, another genocidal war was waged in Ethiopia. Okay, in Saturn Venus, Mussolini resigned he signed the Rome-Berlin Power Pact, and in Saturn Moon, he entered the Second World War. Okay, in Saturn Mars, Italy was defeated in North Africa. In Saturn Rahu, Mussolini was deposed and and imprisoned. Okay, and later on rescued by German commandos. But then he was finally captured by the partisans and executed in April 1945, all during this Saturn Rahu period. Okay, so it was one hell of a ride, but you can see the role of Kalasarpa in this. Okay, so that's it with Rahu in the first and Ketu in the 7th house analysis. Okay, so it's a very interesting analysis, and I hope all of you enjoyed it just like I did while teaching this. Any questions from anyone?
I have a question.
Yeah, Shannon, just a minute. Yeah, please repeat.
Yeah, I have a question. So you
Yeah.
mentioned something about a TT Lord. Yeah, where do I find it?
You can find it in any astrology software. If you're using this, I think you're using Cosmic Insights.
Yeah, that's the thing. And
Yeah, go to the Panchang
okay.
part of the horoscope and see the Tithi Lord.
Ah, okay.
Okay.
But I'm not seeing Lord. I'm seeing the year Lord, month Lord, and all those things.
Yeah, you can see the Tithi Lord there also. You can see it. It'll be there. You just go to your chart
Mm-hmm.
and then see. You'll find a Tithi Lord. Somewhere it will be there.
Okay.
Okay.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
All right then. So I hope there are no questions, and yeah, see you all tomorrow for the Jyotish Foundation class, where we take up a new topic after covering the Mahadashas in a lot of detail. Okay. All right. Thank you everyone for joining in. I'll see you next week. Om Gurave Namaha.